Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Monday, July 7th, 2014 already. And still, in July already. Man. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of incredible programming, unbiased, uncensored news, information, and analysis that we believe is important for you to know. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look beyond what is presented to you by the mainstream media and even some of the not-so-mainstream media. We look well beyond the headlines, the bylines, the fog of disinformation and misinformation to bring you really what's propelling the news, and there's much of it. We broadcast live each and every weeknight for those new listeners from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com, and we're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network there. You can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Folks, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us as we continue forward, press forward through this minefield of events together. And I just want to thank you for joining us as well on our weekend edition with Sheila Zielinski. What a great show that is, Joe. It's just been a great day to have you here within the office and studio as we progressed into the studio, and of course, it's just been a busy day all around.
Yes, it has. We talked with Blog Talk Radio today. I want to say a special thank you to Cynthia, the lady, the representative that we talked with. She said that the listeners sent many emails, all which were very nice. She said the listeners were very patient, and she wanted us to thank you guys for your patience and kindness in emailing them about the problems we had with the show Friday. The technical people in Blog Talk are still trying to figure out what exactly it is that went wrong, but they did apologize. They did help us out
really
with
nice.
and said that they would get back to us once they pinpointed the issue. Another announcement here. I'd just like to say to J&T, we got a letter from J&T, and they wanted to confirm that we were getting their letter and their support, and we want to say yes, we are, and you asked us to inform you, so we wanted to say that to J&T, and we thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, when we were on the telephone with BTR today, of course they know who we are. We know we've got a pretty solid presence with them, and I was just impressed because Cynthia did say that all of the emails from you folks were very patient, very kind, very gracious, and I mean, you're talking in just an incredible number of people who emailed BTR, Blog Talk Radio, on behalf of our show, and she just wanted to say that we can authoritatively state, based on their analysis, that we have the kindest, most gracious audience out there, and so many thanks to you folks for caring enough to say, hey, you know, what's going on. The schedule changed too, folks. I want to advise you of this. Tomorrow night we're going to have Steve Quayle on. I talked to him yesterday, and I think I talked to him this morning. It's been like probably 14 hours ago that I spoke with him.
The first part of this is Stan's going to be at the Pikes Peak
yes.
Prophecy in the News Conference, and from now until that's at the end of this month. He will not be on our show until that is over with. He is dealing with some computer issues, and he has a lot of work he wants to do for his presentations he'll be giving there. So he's going to take the next few Tuesdays off. But this Tuesday,
Stan Dale will be on, Steve Quayle will be on with a gentleman that you're going to want to hear. At least this gentleman is going to be on for, I think, the first hour or an hour, one of the hours. It's not 100% confirmed yet. He's from Czechoslovakia. He's an American citizen by birth, but he has developed some technology to protect your cell phone from invasiveness. He's also going to be talking about some preparation as well, some very, very practical advice. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Steve Quayle tomorrow with that gentleman as well, and then Wednesday, of course, we talked to Nathan Leal. Wednesday is going to be Eric John Phelps, right?
Author of Vatican Assassin. Wednesday, hopefully, will be Nathan Leal. He is going through almost a real life grid shutdown. He has had no running water for the past 5 days, and we talked today for a little while. And keep him in your prayers. He is learning what we all will learn in short order, how troubling it is to have to find water for your family, your livestock, for bathing, for cooking, when it is not coming out of the faucets.
Yeah, exactly. And is he scheduled for Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday, okay. And then Eric John Phelps on Wednesday, and Nathan Leal on Thursday.
And Steve tomorrow with the Czechoslovakian gentleman.
Exactly. Folks, at this point, too, I want to draw your attention, if I may, to our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com. If you're at a computer or if you're listening to this via archive or whenever, whatever, however, on our website, there is a message from al-Baghdadi. It almost sounds like some sort of some sort of a rock name, if you will. But
this the head of ISIS?
Well, he is really the head. He's proclaiming himself to be the head of that's correct, the Islamic State. ISIS has grown from ISIS from Islamic State of Iraq and Syria to Islamic State in Iraq and Levant to just simply the Islamic State, IS. And what they're proclaiming, Joe, is essentially they're taking all of the borders throughout the area, which really was the intent all along, and just erasing the borders and making this nothing but one Sunni Islamic state. They're plowing through. And I spent a good part of the weekend going through material, interesting material from Arabic language websites, compliments of Archangel. Archangel is a source that has been deeply behind enemy lines, shall we say, at least in the virtual world, for quite some time, monitoring Arabic language websites. Now, it's interesting because it's getting more and more difficult to identify who the good guys and who the bad guys are. And when I say that, I'm talking about I want to be very careful with what I say here. There appears to be a growing government presence or a growing covert presence or a presence of intelligence operatives that are populating these Islamic terrorist websites and web forums and discussion boards. And they are promoting what you see on our front page. What you see on our front page is a more exact interpretation or more exact representation of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, his sermon that he gave. This is actually posted sometime within the last 10 days, coinciding with the beginning of Ramadan. And if you read it, the reason we posted it is to show you what the Islamic State's goals are. They're calling for global, worldwide jihad. This coincides, folks, with a quieting, shutting down of the certain key websites, much like in 2003, what happened in 2003, when everyone was saying, well, the Muslim terrorists are not going to attack during the month of Ramadan. Those people who have followed our research will remember that. Will remember that time, and everyone was saying, well, wait, it just doesn't feel right. Something's wrong, and they're not following the normal traditional truces. And this could be compared with the Tet Offensive back in 1968 with the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese, when in fact during the Tet holiday they launched a massive offensive in 1968. Well, I would compare it to, and our source Archangel compares it as well to that period of time in history. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is because what we're seeing is ISIS and this new leadership form all across the Middle East. From an investigative point of view, I was looking at this in a number of different ways this weekend and throughout today, and I'm going to tell you, there's only so much you can read and so much you can watch, so many videos, before you start really, it just gets to you. We're looking at one of the most deadly, one of the most violent, vile, vicious groups of people, if you can even call them that, in the entire globe. ISIS is these people are not just confined to this particular area.
Don't forget, some of them are Americans, some of them are British, all backed by U.S. taxpayer dollars. Branch of
That's
the
right.
Intelligence community, really, when you get right down to it. And
it's sickly because they're boasting about how they're using the Ford F-150s and F-350s and the
right
Toyotas.
in the videos.
Yeah, yep. And there was one video which I sent you, which we were able to, again, compliments to and thanks to Archangel. There was one video which was posted on a server behind a lot of things. It took some doing to get to. And this video shows an Australian, someone from Britain, someone from the Middle East, other. This video shows a number of speakers representing numerous countries in the West as well, talking about the global jihad. And it was taken in, I would say, battlefield conditions, or they appear to be battlefield conditions, perhaps in Iraq, perhaps in Syria. There was no definitive location. But the reason I bring this up is they are calling for people all across the West, including Western countries and even in the United States, to rise up, to either fight, to join them in their fight in in Iraq and Syria, or to begin to open up a front here in the United States. Now, you might think, well, that's ridiculous. We're not going to see this kind of fighting here in the United States. Well, look, they're calling for it. We certainly have had this influx of Muslim fighters here, or Muslim extremists, shall we say, or here in the United States. They've been here. They've been allowed to come here through the open borders, both under this administration and previous administrations. This renegade in chief, I wouldn't even call it administration. But folks, what we're seeing here is really the fulfillment of a globalist objective here. And the last thing I'll say, and then we're going to get into specific news as the program unfolds here, specific items from immigration to Syria. We are looking at, I believe, based on my own assessment here of everything, over the last 48 to 72 hours, we're looking at the Obama regime, the renegade in chief, the powers behind him in particular, opening up numerous fronts. What I mean by that is the American people are being pummeled, being struck by from 1,000 different directions, by every direction you can think of. The IRS, the southern border, invasion on our southern border, the devaluing of the dollar, the killing of the dollar, the lack of justice. That's really a sin of omission, not commission, but nonetheless an act, a sin. There are so many different areas. The Fast and Furious, both domestic and internationally. Fast and Furious at the southern border. Folks, don't believe for 1 minute that has stopped. It hasn't stopped. We're still running guns into South and Central America and Mexico. We are providing assets to ISIS, despite what the mainstream media says. Hard assets, military assets, left over from our role in Iraq. This is all by design. So the more pressure we exert, for example, on Benghazi, the more resistance and back pressure we're going to get in some other fashion. This is all by design. And it's to take us out not just one way, but dozens of ways. Please understand what you're seeing here is really something very serious, extremely serious. We have to look at this not as, for example, when we watch the news. If you watch the news, and really I would urge people to take a look at the network news once in a while to see what they're reporting. And when you do, if you haven't seen it for a while, oh my goodness, it's really, it's telling. It's telling because it shows you the agenda, in a sense. Take a step back and look at the entire picture and see how Obama and his Obama the renegade fits into all of this, his handlers. This has all been planned. It's been planned and facilitated by previous administrations, whether it be Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush. Look, they've all had a hand in getting us to where we are today. So we can't look at Syria and Iraq without looking at Ukraine, and we can't look at Ukraine without looking at the larger global financial crisis, orchestrated crisis. And we can't look at the global financial crisis that was orchestrated without looking also at the illegal invasion of illegal aliens across our southern border. We can't look at that without looking at perhaps a dozen or two other issues here domestically. Everything is connected. Now, I'm not saying that there's, I mean, they're playing off, these incidents are being played off of one another. At the end of the line, it's the same people, same power brokers that are orchestrating all of these incidents and initiatives and objectives and this chaos. It's chaos by design. But
it's V said the scandals will continue to increase with new scandals, with a continuation of old scandals will continue to increase revelations from the old scandals, as all part of a big distraction as to what the main agenda is, one being the economic condition of our country, which is slowly being dwindled away to nothing, to the point where we will be like Argentina or the Weimar Republic or any country that has experienced a paper currency collapse. It is taking away from the fact that we are watching Bible prophecy being played out before our eyes, even shaped and being carried out by the globalists. They are trying to carry out Bible prophecy, create Bible prophecy through this Islamic caliphate that they're creating in the Middle East. And
that's a good point, by the way.
We've got to get Bill Silas back on as this ISIS threat continues to increase. And as we talked about this before this really came out into fruition, and he talked about how, the Psalm 83 war, Ezekiel 38, 39, Gog and Magog, how these wars take place and how they start. And we talked about this caliphate forming, and this is not something is new to those in the alternative media, but it's something that we are seeing come to full fruition now. And it is something that we need to pay very close attention to and remain in prayer and in reading our Bibles as the days are getting shorter, because this is only leading to one conclusion: the final battle before the millennial reign. And every day we get closer.
Folks, I would urge everyone, if you have the time, if you're looking for some summer reading, if you can find this book, I haven't checked to see if it's available on Amazon or elsewhere.
I'll sell you my dad's copy for $199.98.
Hey, now. I think it's a WorldNet Daily book, but it's by Paul Sperry. It's Crude Politics. Wow. It was published back, I think, well, let me just double check here. I've got it here on my desk. This was published back in, let me look, 2003. That's what I thought. Grab a hold of that book, and that gives you some extremely important background on both Iraq and Afghanistan, and it also frames 9/11 in an interesting light. It doesn't get into who's behind 9/11. 9/11 is merely a footnote here in this book, but it does talk about the oil, some very interesting oil. It approaches it from the oil standpoint and the political oil. And I would urge everyone, too, to, if you're interested in additional reading material as well, or if you've read that one, in addition to that, Bill Salas, you're right, Joe, Israelistine and Psalm 83. These all fit together. And, of course, Paul McGuire's book, Prophecy of the Future of America. If you would take those books and put them all together and read what's in them, it really gives you a good backdrop, a good basis of information, because there is a consistent theme running through these. Now, Greg Jackson also wrote a couple of wonderful books that deal with the, I want to say the domestic, the social, the moral decline of America. But with respect to really the larger prophetic picture, you've got to take a look at prophecy. And it's wow. We're watching prophecy unfold right before our very eyes. And by the way, I'll throw in there Apollyon Rising 2012 by Tom Horn. The reason I put that in there because he does make many references to 9/11 and the mystical gods, Isis, Osiris, so on and so forth, and really how all of these particular groups, gods, fit together. Apollo, and the timing of everything. It's enough to really take your breath away. It really is. When I started reading the headlines and reading as well, reading the forums, the Islamic forums translated, and when you start reading, for example, Baghdadi's statement about the Islamic State, those kind of all fit together. And I've got no doubt, Joe, that Obama has been appointed to fulfill his role. And I'm not going to say I do not believe he's the Antichrist, by the way. Somebody had sent me an email asking me if I believe that Obama was the Antichrist. I don't believe he is. Do you?
No, not at all.
Okay, all right. I do believe that.
I could be wrong, but I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking personal opinion here. I do believe that as we see things play out, we're going to see this economic collapse lead to this power vacuum all across the world, because without Western money, the United States is not going to be a formidable military power.
Well, what the IMF says in their recent release, talking about lessons learned after the coming global financial crisis, its first sentence is, "A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And nowhere is this truer than in the arena of international economic policy cooperation." And it goes to talk about, as we talked about, the consolidation of the economic and political powers after a collapse of a magnitude of a United States dollar collapse, which would in turn collapse the global economy. And most of it, I would say, those countries that still use the dollar and depend on the dollar as the world reserve currency. Now we see China making a lot of moves with other countries to get away from that, and that's not by accident or foresight. That's by design, as they know what is going to happen. But first, I think tonight I want to get into some news with the immigration issue. I'm going to start by playing a clip from Homeland Secretary of Homeland Security. Not many people know his name. Jan Johnson is his name. Jay Johnson. Yeah. He was asked. He refused to answer if the illegal aliens will be deported. The ones who were coming up now, as we see this surge of people, illegal immigrants being pulled into the United States. He refused to answer if they will be deported. Here's the clip.
Are they going to be deported or not? I mean, this is the bottom line. I know there's a process they have to go through. Will most of these children that we have seen in this desperate situation stay in America, or will they be returned to their homes in Central America?
There is a deportation proceeding that is commenced against illegal migrants, including children. We are looking at ways to create additional options for dealing with the children in particular, consistent with our laws and our values.
I'm trying to get an answer to, will most of them end up staying, in your judgment?
I think we need to find more efficient, effective ways to turn this tide around generally, and we've already begun to do that.
All right. Well, what does that mean? Are you saying it's impractical to deport all of them who are here now?
I'm saying that we've already dramatically reduced the turnaround time for the adults, and we're in the process of doing that for the adults with the kids. We are looking at additional options for the kids in particular.
To deport them or to settle them here in America? Is the goal of the administration to settle as many of these kids in America as possible?
The goal of the administration is to stem the tide and send the message unequivocally that
what about thousands of children who are here now? What is the goal of the administration? To settle them in America or to deport them back to situations that might be even life-threatening?
There is a deportation proceeding pending against everyone who comes into this country illegally and is apprehended at the border.
When you look at
apprehended at the border, they're being flagged in by Border Patrol agents and members of our government.
Under the cover of green. Under the cover of green. Folks, have you noticed, have you seen footage, whether it be on Fox or any of the networks, where they're covering via green fencing, green tarp fencing, the escorts of immigrants?
I don't know. We're not seeing a lot of the coverage because Department of Health and Human Services is muzzling the media.
There you go.
During the touring of immigrant child housing, Health and Human Services official will allow reporters to visit a military facility housing some of the immigrant children who have arrived at the southern border in recent weeks, but only if the media promises not to record anything, not to ask any questions during the tour, or not to talk to any staff members or children. We read you guys an article last week. This is from the same Representative Jim Bernstein of Oklahoma. He says this violates the First Amendment. Who represents the congressional district containing the housing facility at Fort Sill said of the HHS invitation to the media, "This is not transparent. HHS is trying to muzzle the media and hide from the human tragedy that has resulted directly from the administration's failure to enforce the law. HHS attached 7 rules in order to protect the safety and privacy of the children for the media who come to the tour. Here are these 7 rules. 1, no recording devices will be allowed. 2, no questions will be allowed. 3, no interacting with staff or children. 4. We ask that your questions be provided via email or phone after the tour. HHS ACF Public Affairs will provide answers to your follow-up questions as quickly as possible. Next, we will provide photos of the facility after the tour. And finally, there will be no on-site interviews by HHS staff before or after the tour. All inquiries go to Kenneth Wolf. Bernstein was barred from entering the Fort Sill facility on July 1st. He's trying to schedule a July 12th visit in addition to an unannounced visit that he will again attempt to make. Ordinary Americans have a right to know what is happening in these facilities, how the children are being treated, what is being done to stop this human tragedy, he said in a Monday morning statement. Now, we have gag orders being placed on Border Patrol union officials. Border Patrol union officials under gag orders says no agents securing border. This is from Breitbart. And California Border Patrol Union Representative Ron Zermino told ABC 10 San Diego that he has been placed under a gag order in an attempt to avoid negative news about the state of the southern border from getting out to the public. Zermino says that the order was designated to prevent him from saying that no agents will be securing the southern border. And
precisely.
Yeah, and it goes on from there. Riot squads, feds to bring in riot squads to arrest illegal immigration protesters. There have been several buses that have been turned around by protesters in the Texas-Mexico border, and immigrants continue to spill across this border, and federal authorities are attempting to relocate the migrants, this from Breitbart, from South Texas to housing facilities in states across the nation. One such facility is located in Murrieta, California, where large groups of protesters recently blocked a bus full of migrants from arriving. The protesters remain there, adamant that illegal immigrants don't get dumped in their town. But soon, concerned citizens may be forced to step down due to the federal agents' plan to arrive in Marietta with riot gear to ensure that another busload makes it to the housing facility uninterrupted. This is a quote from Jeremy Oliver, a resident in California. He says that it's going to get ugly. He said the feds are pissed that they haven't been able to use this facility because of the protesters, but they say that riot gear shields will be used to push the crowd back and the buses will be able to go through.
All right. You know, one thing when I was looking at illegal immigrant, at this situation we have right now, is how do we get here? That's kind of what I want to know, is how did we arrive at this particular point, and why now?
We're on the Titanic. We hit the iceberg, and we're sinking. This is our country. This is our continent, even as a North America. Even if we all Americans went to migrate to Mexico, you're just rearranging chairs on the Titanic. It's all going to come to the same end.
Well, right, but I want to. No, we have to do something, and there are people who are engaged in responding down at the southern border, and I believe it's important because without borders, we don't have a country. Once we dilute the language and the moral and ethnic fabric of our country, we don't have a country. It's one big bowl of soup from Central America up through the North Pole, basically, and Canada, United States, Mexico. I guess that's what they wanted anyway, isn't it? A North American Union.
When we traveled out of town as investigators a while back, and I think we have this picture up on our website, I think the article title was a North American Union, something along those lines. We saw a truck that said U.S. Mex-Can, U.S. M-E-X-C-A-N. It's for United States, Mexico, and Canada. And there were a number of these trucks that have the three nations logos or designs on their truck in a way that makes it look like it's one.
No, exactly, and of course you've got the road building in the south and up through the heart of the country, and this is still going on, of course. But when I was looking at really how we got here, and I think this is important because some of the very same people who caused what's taking place. This didn't happen overnight, of course. This did not just happen in the last 6 months. This has been really brewing for some time. In fact, there have been major trends that have characterized this type of illegal immigration into America over the past few decades. The leading cause of the spike in the illegal population that's here now, and has been here now, has been this massive influx of, let's deal with this first, Mexicans, people from Mexican nationals, entering the United States at just an unbelievable rate over the past couple of decades. Consider that during the entire decade of the 1950s, there were only about 300,000 legal Mexican immigrants who came to the United States. That was about, at that time, now folks, think about this, that was about 12% of the immigrant flow. Now, this is important, really, to lay the foundation, because, boy, I was engaged in a dialogue with a ultra-progressive, homosexual, radical activist. You should have been there. And he finally just threw up his hands and walked away because I was hitting him with facts, and he didn't want to hear them. We were talking about the illegal immigration, and he said they're undocumented workers, and they should, or no, he didn't even. He said they're undocumented citizens is what he said, and that just threw me right over. I mean, wow.
If we can, the definition of the word cooperation is the process of working together to the same end.
Cooperation? Where did that come up?
This North American Union. You know, the cooperation between nations. They say that for the stability of Mexico and for the stability of Canada, for the stability of the U.S., we're going to work with these certain nations for these certain objectives. But the cooperation between these nations is literally working together towards the same end.
Well, exactly, and that's at the core. That's the nugget of really. Cooperation was a word used back in the 50s, well, in the 60s, essentially, that really brought about this, the thesis of a North American Union. And that's kind of what I want to mention here, because now think about this, and as I mentioned this, legal Mexican immigrants came into the U.S. in the decade of the 50s, and at that time, by 1959, there was only 300,000 legal Mexican immigrants in the United States. Now, how did we get to where we're at now? Well, illegal immigration from Mexico spiked initially back in the late 1960s after there was an abrupt termination that took place in 1964 of this guest worker program that had brought an additional 5 million Mexican-born farm laborers to the United States between 1942 and 1964. This was beyond that, of course, beyond where that 300,000 was part of that 5 million, but it was through this cooperative effort of the United States and Mexico. I didn't think we had it back then, did we, between 1942 and 1964?
No,
but we did.
And if I can jump in here and interrupt, I just want to say this. One thing and one goal that has been able to be reached, really, from what I see, is through this, illegal influx of people, is we see the sentiments of certain Americans towards our brothers to the south and being hateful towards them. This is one of the mainstream media and elitist goals, is for us to hate the people who are different from us, hate the people that are, or we are shown to us as hindrances to our way of life, or enemies to our way of life. And to a certain extent, there is evil that is a hindrance to our way of life. There are people that are evil. Then there are people like this who are useful tools.
Well, I think
I just want to make it clear is that we can't hate. We have to hold the administration accountable and make them be accountable to the law. We can't hate the people who are being shipped over here for a political agenda.
They're just being used as pawns.
Right, but there is sediment out there I see where people are using it for a opportunity to throw racial slurs or throw
that's always going to be the
class slurs out there. We have to be more careful than that. I just wanted to make that point because I don't want people to get caught up in this battle for the upholding of the Constitution as a opportunity to wage hate against somebody just because they're not the same nationality or that line has to be drawn.
Well, I can see your sentiment where you're seeing a lot of pundits get on the airwaves and say, look at the hatred, meaning the hatred by the people who are protesting and blockading the buses, for example. It's not hatred of the people coming in. It's the hatred of the lawlessness of the renegade in chief. I don't see anybody, or I haven't seen anyone, and I think it's a straw man argument for even you to bring up, quite frankly, unless you're doing it preemptively to say that there's hate there. I don't see that.
I do, and the reason. Let me play this clip here. It's called "Neighbor Against Neighbor." Neighbor of sites to house border children concerned about protests. And it talks about neighbor coming after neighbor.
Undocumented children from the border. The shelter sites up for consideration. D.A. Hulsey Middle School, that's a DISD campus. It closed in 2012. There are some homes nearby. A Parkland Hospital building, it's in an industrial area on Butler Street. And Lamar Alternative School, it's in Grand Prairie, a vacant campus situated in the middle of a neighborhood. No matter which site is used, there is the potential for scenes like this. More protests today in Murrieta, California. It has become a flashpoint in the crisis over children crossing into the United States illegally. People are angry about their arrival from overcrowded Border Patrol stations in Texas. Some local conservatives are calling on people to protest the buses of children coming here next month.
Folks should do what they did in California. Peacefully protest the buses as they arrive. They may get sent back to where they belong, at the border, and then back home with their loved ones.
That's local radio host Chris Kroc on a taping for Inside Texas Politics. Today, Newsday's Tanya Iser talked to officials in Grand Prairie who have concerns about more than just potential protests.
These images are from Murrieta, California, where irate protesters have converged on buses carrying undocumented kids and adults. This is something Dallas County may soon see when as many as 2,000 unaccompanied immigrant children arrive here.
There'll be adequate security to make sure that the kids are safe and that the neighborhood is safe.
On Thursday, Jenkins announced 3 locations, 2 closed schools and a warehouse owned by Dallas's Parkland Hospital as the most viable sites. This tiny former elementary school in northeast Grand Prairie is on the list.
If it's in a reasonably bad state of disrepair.
Grand Prairie Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Tony Shotwell isn't against bringing the kids to Dallas County, but has major concerns about using the school, particularly given its location in a neighborhood.
At one time it was a good place to put kids. I just don't know if it's a good place for kids 24/7, and I'm positive in my humble opinion it's not a good place for teenagers 24/7.
He said he and other city leaders feel blindsided and has sent a formal letter demanding a seat at the table.
It irritates me. I'm really upset. I'm deeply disappointed with our school administration.
Jenkins says city leaders were notified as soon as the school became a viable option. Shotwell
what are we
worries
trying
about
to prove
Murrieta-like
here
protests and that neighbor will be pitted against neighbor.
Most of these people have lived in this neighborhood for a long time and know each other very well, but it's definitely a possibility.
Either way.
Seriously.
The very end there.
Yeah,
neighbor will be pitted against neighbor.
No, that was some bubble-headed media bimbo talking about
how neighbors will be pitted against neighbors, using this, as I said earlier, this crisis to create more hatred and more anger against men and fellow men, brother against brother, regardless of what nationality we are. We are all humans.
Okay. No, you're not saying this, are you? Okay.
I'm saying that we cannot hate the people who are coming here illegally. That we legally can send them back. We can legally do the things peacefully, but to hate somebody, which is sentiment I've seen, is all I'm addressing.
Oh, come on. The sentiment you're seeing, Joe, is being cultivated by the left, progressive, captured, communist,
New World
Order media.
The people are buying into it.
Who people? What people?
I see it all the time on internet forums, on social media. Racial slurs. Get these blanks out of here. I'm just saying, be careful. Is all.
All right. Am I missing something here? I mean, seriously. I know it's Monday. I know it's been. Look. What
the Bible says, don't use your liberty for a case of maliciousness, is all. And we are seeing this. And it is another story here
talk about
out of Newsmax.
Off the script. Okay, go on.
Back to the Homeland Security Chief dodging questions about child deportations. It goes on to say that not even the children, they're trying to escape violent countries to enter here legally, will face deportation hearings at the border. But the Homeland Security Secretary, Jay Johnson, basically acknowledged Sunday that such proceedings might be long delayed, and it goes on to say that thousands of Central American children are being, used as political tools.
Right.
It goes on to say that.
Okay, so how are you extrapolating hatred from this?
Well, because there are politicians, there are people on the left, as you said, and there are people on forums that are using, like I said, racial, cultural slurs to describe these children, these people. From all I was trying to do was put out a warning not to fall into the trap of hating the people who are being used as pawns.
Well,
that's all.
Of course,
that's simple.
Okay, but we must follow the rule of law. We must understand that these are not undocumented citizens. These are not undocumented workers. These are people who are in this country illegally, being transported illegally by our federal government assets, illegally in violation of U.S. code. Our own government, or the people in charge, are acting against the Constitution, against our nation's laws. These are not children necessarily. They're not unaccompanied children in all cases, in the majority of cases, as a matter of fact. Why do you think the green fences are up there so people can't? Why do you think Bridenstine was prohibited from taking photographs? Because the photographs would reveal exactly what and who is that these criminals, the criminal element in chief's regime, are protecting. They're protecting gang members. They're protecting people who have criminal records. And yes, there are children, minors in there as well. But what is the purpose of all this? If you go back to the 50s and 60s, as I said, you had this cooperative effort between 42 and 64. There were some abuses, but it was basically successful overall in terms of the migrant worker program. But when you get to the 80s and 90s, now this is where the cross-contamination, and I deliberately use that word, occurred. Between the 1980s and 1990s, the flow of cross-border migration became just absolutely a tsunami. Somewhere, as of late 2009, there were an estimated 21 million illegal aliens, that's emphasis on the word illegal, residing within our borders, 2/3 of them being Mexican. Now, if me pointing it out that they're Mexican, for example.
That's not anything I'm making reference to. No.
Okay. Now, because the hatred aspect here is a straw man argument. It's a fallacious argument, and it's one that needs to be put down right away. Because it doesn't matter if these people would be coming from, I don't care what foreign country. They could be.
Right. There would be some form of racist type hatred.
But But that's just that's not a correct argument.
No, it's true, and I'm just not saying it's any argument that any of our audience or any position any of our audience holds or anybody I know holds. Like I said, I've seen a few comments on the internet, whether they're agitators, whether they're people who are here to put flames on the fire. I'm just simply warning: do not use this for a. It's getting people riled up. It's getting people angry, and sometimes that anger can be misdirected. All I'm saying is be careful.
In the context of pitting a patriot against a patriot, or pitting one person against another, yes, that argument has merit. However, it is to me a red herring, and it shouldn't even be discussed in the context of the illegal activities being conducted at the highest levels of the criminal element of this alleged government here. Because if you look back to, and again, you've got to look back and understand what's coming ahead and why. The DHS, and take it for what it's worth, their estimates of the illegal alien population here in America between January of 2000 and 2007, January, grew by 3.3 million, an additional 3.3 million, adding to the already, we'll say culminating in somewhere between 20 to 22 million to 23 million illegal aliens in the United States, residing here with basic impunity, or without any type of efforts to really do anything to send them back, or if they were sent back, they would come back up. If we look at this, there are people fighting against enforcement efforts of our laws. Behind the fighting of the enforcement efforts is a very aggressive and extremely well-funded immigrant rights lobby. Look at groups like the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, MALDEF, for example. Their top public policy priority is the fight on behalf of voting rights of illegal aliens. So what we're looking at here, of course, you're looking at some political bumps and things, but you're also looking at the intentional, going down to the border, you're looking at this intentional, you're looking at a number of things that are concurrent in nature. You're looking at pitting one person, one American citizen against another American citizen over this influx of illegal immigration, or over illegal aliens coming in. That's a big deal. This renegade regime is doing what they did in Iraq and Syria by opening up a front to cause this civil war in Syria at our southern border. It's the same playbook. So in that respect, Joe, you're right, but it's not the hatred of the people coming through that in my view is the genesis. It's the intolerable acceptance of the lawbreakers, of the lawlessness. What does that say, by the way, allowing in busing and caring for sick, diseased gang members and others, having them bust all over the country and flown all over the country? What does that do to our society? It strains our society. I mean, we're broke as it is, and we're supposed to care for however many tens of thousands are crossing monthly down there. So, I mean, this is the plan. Look, this is a way to force illegal or immigration reform. And you've got the Lollipop Guild, led by Sheila Jackson Lee, taking lollipops to criminals. Pawns they might be, but now they're lollipop-laden pawns. Did you hear about that, where Sheila Jackson Lee goes to the border and passes out lollipops? Something definitely wrong here.
I did see that story, yeah.
Okay, now, just to give you a little bit more background, and then we'll move on. Really, if you look at the history of the illegal immigration as well as legal immigration during Eisenhower's term, go back that far, because really you've got to look at this in the macro as opposed to this micro situation that we're looking at it, or most people are looking at it. Illegal Mexican border crossings had grown to about 1 million. At that time, during Eisenhower's first term, this is mid-50s now, we had a massive illegal workforce. That had a devastating impact on the wages of American workers. Okay, and now you've got to address the companies that hire these undocumented illegal aliens. And we saw it as investigators in New York City. My goodness, there were people from Bosnia, people from China, people from Mexico. Oh, so many people from Mexico, Central and some parts of South America, who would come here to work, get a family member, live with a family member. They were not here legally. And we would point this out in court. Look, you've got sitting at that table right there, Your Honor, somebody who has no valid Social Security number, has a fake identity, is in this country illegally and working illegally, and the courts did not want to hear that. I was told on several occasions that was not the venue to litigate illegal immigration. In fact, working workers' compensation cases, for example, they were awarded workers' compensation, regardless of the fact that they were in this country illegally. I would compare it to someone breaking into your house, getting hurt, falling down during this felonious, we'll say a felony robbery, and then turning around and suing you and winning in court because the judge didn't want to hear the circumstances under which he was hurt. That's what I'm talking about. But really quick here, just to bring this up to speed, all of this that happened in the past led to an Immigration Reform Act in 1965. Legal immigration increased sharply. Illegal immigration rose right along with it after 1965. And don't forget, Senator Kennedy, Edward Kennedy, said about the 1965 Immigration Act, this bill will not flood our cities with immigrants. It will not upset the ethnic mix of our society. No. What it did was it spurred chain migration, which fueled illegal immigration along with a sense of entitlement among illegal aliens and immigrants. In the decades that followed, Mexico and even Central America became the primary source countries of both legal and illegal immigration. Look, it changed the complexion, I suppose, of the people here in this country. Illegal aliens also use the lure of birthright citizenship, folks, or anchor babies, to circumvent U.S. immigration laws and gain permanent residency, if not outright citizenship. This is a deliberate misinterpretation and a deliberate assault on the 14th Amendment to the Constitution that grants U.S. citizenship on those born on American soil. It prostitutes the 14th Amendment. This is a direct assault against our Constitution, the 14th Amendment, by this birthright citizenship. And I know we're up against a break, but let me just finish this. Illegal immigrants, illegal aliens know that the odds are low that anybody is going to give a whip about deporting them. And of course, now they're getting the message, not only will you not be deported, but you're going to be treated to 3 hots and a cot, essentially, here in this country. Since the immigration, and this is something, another part, and I'm going to close out the hour with this. We were told, if you recall back with the passage of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 65, Congress had passed, or we were told subsequent to that, amnesties would stop the tide or slow down the tide of illegal immigration. Well, look at the Immigration and Reform Control Act of 1986. It was a blanket amnesty for over 2.7 million illegal aliens, in addition to those already here. 1994, Section 245, amnesty, which is a temporary rolling amnesty for over 500,000 illegal aliens. Section 245, again, in 1997, another extension of the amnesty created back 3 years prior. And then you had 4 others. I'm not going to get into those, but each one building on the former, with Life Act amnesty, late amnesty back in the year 2000. Again, the reinstatement of the rolling section of 245 amnesty. Each time you had legitimized hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens from Haiti, from Central America, from Mexico, and from other countries. So what we're seeing here today, folks, is a culmination of multiple decades of failures of past amnesties, and also a cooperative effort between the globalists, including Bush, Clinton, previous presidents, as well as the current renegade in chief, to bring in illegals and to destroy the moral fabric of our country. That's what this is all about on a larger scale. So don't give me that this is a humanitarian crisis on the border, or this is just a kind of a flare-up of suddenly, all of a sudden we have tens of thousands of illegals showing up on the border, and their children and they're defenseless. No. This is planned. This has all been planned, and despite our opposition, open border advocates are just constantly lobbying in Washington, every hour of every day.
Yeah, and these aren't children that are coming from Mexico, per the government's own announcements. These are children coming from Central America. What means do children alone living south of Mexico have to make it all the way up to the Americas, or up to America, and get across the border? There's obviously much more hands behind the curtains working to make this happen.
Right, and I just want to say, please, folks, don't look at this as merely this happening under Obama or limiting this orchestrated crisis to the past, we'll say 6 months that you've been hearing about it. Your attention has been directed to it over the last 6 months, and in particular over the last 6 weeks. It has reached epic proportions by design. It is to occupy us as well. I mean, this is not a diversion, but it does have the effect of a diversion from other areas of concern, such as Syria, such as the IRS abuses, such as the new fascism that's taking hold here in the United States. This is just one cog of a wheel, of a gear, and that gear is a fascism, of this fundamental change. But it's not a fundamental change limited to Barry Soetoro, Barack Hussein Obama. This is a fundamental change that is linked to the larger agenda of the New World Order. And I don't want to sound like a crazy, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs kind of guy. But the fact is, if you look at history, which is why I went back in history to show you, to at least tell you, that this is not just Obama. This goes back further than that. The plans are more diabolical. Just want to tell you that. So, a lot more to get into, and I know that we've reached the top of the hour.
With that, we'll take the top of the hour break. Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Monday, July 7th, 2014. Quick scheduling note. Tomorrow we will not be joined by Stan Deo, nor will we be joined by Stan for the rest of this month, as he is preparing for his news, Prophecy in the News seminar at Pikes Peak this coming at the end of this month. And he will be coming back after that. But tomorrow we will be joined by Steve Quayle and a Czechoslovakian man who's going to be joining him for an hour. Then Wednesday, we're going to have Eric John Phelps on, author of Vatican Assassins. Thursday, hopefully Nathan Liao. And Friday, if we have any further guests, we will let you know.
Well, wait, about Vatican Assassins, let me just say this, okay? Just when you hear the name, you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be Catholic bashing. No, it's not Catholic bashing at all. Just want to make that clear. We don't tolerate that.
No, this guy did 23 years of research to put this book together. He is, we've talked to him on the phone. You actually purchased the book. It's over 1,800 pages, 700 some pages are images or images of documents, and it's just a compilation of information. And it is not Catholic bashing, but it is, I would say,
it's an indictment.
Calling back to the true church and what the true church should be versus what we're being fed.
Yes. And
it's about Jesuit control.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's an indictment of that. And a lot of, I mean, pretty much all this gentleman did. I mean, there's a lot of his words in there too, but the majority of the book are just simply a compilation of other people or others' writings. For example, Jesuits' writings and writings from the Vatican. So it's not biased to the extent that it's him saying this. Right. It's not biased at all. So Catholicism really does not have really anything to do with it if you can separate Catholicism from the hierarchy of the Vatican and the Jesuit control. So just understand that. All right.
I want to open this segment with an email that we got from a Rose. She says, Hate Speech Patrol. Joe, you have fallen into the hate speech fear trap. Thank you for reminding us that we must never speak the truth. We are too often shamed into silence when we dare to speak the truth. When did the truth become toxic? When the mind control politically correct speech police mandated it? We must all become silent. Who are posting these ethically ugly comments? I wonder, don't you? First of all, I'm not speaking out of any kind of politically correct mind control hate speech patrol or police. What I'm saying is, due to these people that I also wonder who are posting these ugly comments, what they're underneath, articles pertaining to the border situation. They're on internet forums in these threads that are talking about them, and I'm pretty sure the most 95% of them to 99% of them are the Obamanista hired internet provocateurs. The only thing I was trying to say is not to speak the truth. It's not to fall into the trap of hate that comes from these ethnically charged, ugly comments probably being posted by government agents. So I just want to make that clear.
And in Joe's defense, I do agree with Rose, by the way, in general, because when you look at the majority of comments, and in today's society, I believe we are controlled, whether we know it or not, whether we think, whether you sit back there and say, well, I'm not really guided or controlled by anything on the internet. If you look at the comment sections on some of the news stories, you will see some of the most vile and vicious hate speech that there is. And I think, during the break, Joe and I talked here because I had the Nerf bat in hand and was headed toward his booth there. And he said, wait a minute, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. And he's correct in what he's saying. I believe, and I'm going to back him up on this only because I had the benefit of a 60-second discussion during the break that a lot of this stuff is being planned. We are actually, if you look at the game plan of the progressives, if you go back to 1969, go back to 1970, 71, or even back as early as 67, 68. If you go back to even further back than that, but I mean, look at the entirety of the race relationship or race relations in this country. A lot of this was fueled by our own federal criminal elements within the government, and a lot were done by the progressive communist left.
But let me add this. Martin Luther King spoke a message of truth. Yeah. He did not speak or play into the prejudices that were the popular thoughts of the or what seemed to be the popular thoughts of the country at that time. And all I'm saying is no matter the situation, no matter the news story, be careful not to fall into the trap of hate. That's all I'm saying.
Right, and I think we could have both been a little bit more articulate in making our cases. Again, we're not professional talk show hosts, but what we are saying here is there is an agenda to pit brother against brother and family against family and citizen against citizen here in our country, and we're seeing it take place. And the common kernel here is in fact go ahead.
I just want to say one thing I would never advocate is the silencing of the truth, no matter what that truth is.
Oh, I'll go along with you on that.
So I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, and Anne Marie writes, Doug, Joe is correct in that people are using this issue as an excuse to spew hate. He didn't mean you are, but I've also seen a lot of hateful comments online, and that's very true. I have too. And also, this from Donald, Joe, your dad just doesn't get it sometimes. He's still waking up. I see where you're coming from, and I think you're misinterpreting my smackdown of Joe to reflect an ignorance of the bigger picture, which is not true. So just, hear me out on that. And also, before it's news is reporting that feds are headed to the border conflict with riot gear. We've heard that from a number of different sources. Joe, you've been tracking that story pretty much all day. What are your thoughts or what are your findings on that? I do know that that's being reported that the feds are headed down. That feds are headed down to the border in riot gear and equipped for that. I believe that this is all part.
In Marietta County, California, there have been buses that have been turned away by protesters. Right. Now we have,
which, by the way, were peaceful in nature. Generally, but those who were arrested were actually who?
Pro-immigration antagonizers and provocateurs. Actually, immigrants attacked a police officer down in this Marietta County, and they made it. A few agencies spun that around to make it look like it was Tea Party patriots that were causing the trouble down here.
And that's what. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what you were getting at. Is that's the trap in which you're referring to? Which you're referring? Is that correct?
Somewhat,
sort of?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It says protesters arrested at Marietta border standoff were pro-illegal immigration agitators. That's from InfoWars. Here from Breitbart, it says, as illegal immigrants continue to spill across the U.S.-Mexico border, federal authorities are attempting to relocate these immigrants from South Texas to housing facilities across the nation. One such facility is located in Marietta, California, where a large group of protesters recently blocked the bus full of migrants from arriving. The protesters remained there, adamant that illegal immigrants don't get dumped in their town, but soon concerned citizens may be forced to step down. Breitbart, Texas has learned that federal agents plan to arrive in Marietta on Monday with riot gear to ensure that another busload makes it to the housing facility, not turned around by the protesters. And it goes on to state individual people's dealings since being down there. And this goes back to the clip we played about people being put into different communities. Now they are allocating hospitals, schools that are out of use right now because of summer vacation to house some of these children. We heard the Homeland Security Secretary state that they, when asked directly at least 5 or 6 times, that they are, he did not answer and refused to answer whether the law would be carried out, only that there are options that are being weighed as to how to handle this situation. It is just a constant state. As all these scandals we see, it seems to be a constant state of chaos, a constant state of emotionally draining news broadcasting.
And that's right. And we're actually spending probably more time on this than we should, but since people are reporting on this heavily, and once again, this is kind of why I wanted to get the background down, because if you understand what's happening here, we are being we are being force-fed a false narrative via the mainstream media. We are being lied to by this lawless regime, and this is really turning the tide of our country. Nancy B., I want to say thank you very much for your subject line, subject line here, where she writes, it used to be migrants who were moving up only to work the fields and then go home. That's true. Again, this is why I referenced the historical part of this illegal immigration. And that was advocated by, at that time, back in the Eisenhower era, and moving up from 1942 forward, that was done with the approval or with the facilitation, the controlled movement of these people. It was done or allowed, permitted by the federal progressives in power. If you go back to FDR even, and then the globalists after that, you're looking at this systematic increase of, or the systematic, I don't even know how to describe it, the systematic process of destroying our nation. And Valerie, thank you for writing in the real crisis. And this is something that we didn't touch on that we should. I think what people need to start focusing on is the threat that this poses to the American people. And she writes that diseases that have been eradicated for years in this country are showing up. And we talked about this briefly, I believe it was last week or even on Saturday, where Todd Starnes reported on tuberculosis among Border Patrol agents now. One of the doctors describes it as a looming healthcare crisis. Isn't that interesting? And she brings up a great point here, a fantastic point. Our healthcare system, whether people know it or not, is already on the ropes. I mean, it's not a viable system the way it is, and it's going to have to be reshaped and remolded. Well, you see Obama doing it every day. So add into the mix this massive, orchestrated, planned, deliberate healthcare crisis, cities all across our nation, because of the diseases that are being spread by these people that are being escorted into this country by the criminal cabal of our current federal out-of-control government, led by the empty suit of Barack Hussein Obama, the Manchurian candidate of the 21st century. Well, she writes, this is going to eventually be an American healthcare crisis. Some of the focus should be put on this. Indeed, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're supposed to be protected from this by our government, and yet our government is actually working in our opposite interests, not protecting us at all. So this is talk about really just a fantastic opportunity for the globalists to come in here, for the powers, the elite, and not only pit one against the other, father against son, neighbor against neighbor, cause Bundy 2.0 perhaps, a situation down at the border with the riot control moving in, but tearing at the very heart of the fabric of our country, diluting our identity, our national identity, and our sovereignty as well by eradicating the border. This is all a part of the bigger plan and objective, and then throw in the health crisis on top of that to take down or to stress even more the healthcare system. Of course, this is all part of a larger objective, and that is to take out the United States. And don't forget, concurrent with this, the economic aspect of things. We're already bankrupt.
Yeah, and in other news, a few saw today probably, comments made by Vice President Joe Biden. Joe Biden says this: teabaggers are preventing new gun control laws. Vice President Joe Biden disparaged gun right advocates as teabaggers on CNN host John Walsh show today. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Monday, July 7th edition. This is the portion where we take your phone calls, and we're going to do that this hour at 661-244-9830. 39. We're going to go to the phones now. We're going to go to area code 304. We're coming to you first. The floor is yours.
Hi, Bill. This is Phil from West Virginia, and I'm so happy with you guys again.
Hi, Phil.
Man, I'll tell you what, we're getting beat on every way from Sunday. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
By design, my friend. By design.
I know. But I thank you guys so much for all your guests and Paul McGuire and Steve Quayle and Tom Horn the other night. My God, I mean, if people don't know that that's the voice that's coming out in the last days, I have no idea what to tell them, because I don't know. I mean, we can do the best we can do. I mean, when you guys are doing it, you are, like Alex+Jones, you guys are at the tip of the spear. I mean, you and
we really appreciate
Dave
that.
Hodges, and I'll tell you what, I appreciate you guys, because you're out there. And
well, you know what? We're all in this together, and we were all really made for this day and time, appointed for this day and time, and I do believe that in our lifetimes we are going to see some dramatic things happen. And Paul McGuire talked about it on Saturday, that he's looking for this remnant revival. Those are my words based on his description. I think we're all going to be part of this. And, prayers still matter, you know?
I agree, brother. And if you guys get a chance to read, there's a couple verses, chapters in the Bible. The very last chapter of Zechariah and the very last chapter of Daniel, they go hand in hand. And I'll tell you what, we haven't seen the end. And they can talk about global warming all they want and all these other things. They're just a ruse, and they can talk about anything they want. But when it comes down to it, it's gonna be you and I. It's gonna be you and I in the midst of the final days, and we're not going to be able to run and hide under our mom's skirts or anything else. We're going to have to face it. We'll have to face it.
Phil, you're absolutely right, buddy. Yes, we're not going to be able to hide from what's coming. Phil, God bless you. Thank you so much for your call, by the way.
I love you guys.
Love you too, brother. Folks, we're not going to be able to run and hide from what's coming, and really, or should we? We shouldn't run and hide. We should occupy. We should stand firm in our belief and trust in the Lord, and approach this in a very methodical way. We have to play our position, play it well. We have to, think of this situation as kind of a macro Bundy ranch, or a macro border. If you get down there, you hope that backup will show up, and it will, because people will be led. I'm not saying the southern border as I'm just using that as an example. Whatever the crisis, as time goes on, as we see into 2015 and the dollar devaluing and our economy collapsing. And I was telling my wife too, imagine driving down Main Street in your town and seeing what was seen back in the days of the fall of the Soviet Union, where a car would be parked on the side of the road with somebody dead inside for weeks without anyone moving the body. Why? Because there was nobody to do it. This is what we're going to be facing. It's going to be not the end of the world, but the end of life as we're used to it. So we all have to stick together. And by the way, the application too, I do believe it can be used. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at some point the application can be used as a networking of people geographically to assist
Yes,
the geographical. Okay, and we're working on that too. So there are other areas that we don't talk about that we're working on to help you as listeners as time goes on to perhaps connect with other like-minded people in your area. Dead air.
All right. Go to the next call here. We're going to go to area code 915. Thank you for holding. You're live on the Hagmann Report.
Good evening, my fellow extremist global warming deniers. How are you tonight?
And don't forget racist. Don't forget racist, bigots, and birthers.
Thank you. I almost forgot. What would I do without you? You're such a plethora of information. Hey, guys, I have to ask you a favor, okay? You have an insider named W, and now an insider named K. Well, can I be not exactly an insider L?
Sure. Yeah, we can do the entire alphabet here.
Oh, really? I was kidding.
We have to send you. We got to send you a super secret decoder ring though first, but that's all right.
I haven't had one of those since I had a Cracker Jacks box and got the Green Lantern. Oh wait a minute, no, that was a different one. Mickey Mouse.
You know what? What's sad is we're dating ourselves, and probably a lot of people listening to this of the Generation X or Millennium children don't even know what we're talking about. But anyway, go ahead, sir.
Green Lantern? What? I saw that movie one. Cracker Jacks box? You get a prize? Hey, I'm Rob. But anyway, seriously, have you ever heard of a vaccine rights attorney named Alan Phillips?
No, I haven't, Joe. Have you? Mm-mm. That was a no.
Okay, he has a website named vaccinerights.com. I happen to know the Joe. He helps people get exemptions for their children in school and for their jobs. And I told him I'd give him a little bit of PR. He has his own show on another Blog Talk Radio network.
Okay. What's that website one more time here? Let me write this down. Vaccinerights.com?
Exactly, yes. And his name's Alan Phillips. Very much a legitimate, good, it'll freak you out attorney. Because usually attorneys aren't so honest and above board. But this guy he became a lawyer basically to help people fight against bad things, which is really unusual. Usually people become an attorney to get rich. But
exactly.
Anyway, or be part of the boys' club and all that kind of stuff too. But yeah, he's very much legitimate. And I was talking to him the other day on his show. But go ahead.
We're putting together, just so that people know, we're putting together a resource page of sites that are heavy into assisting others like this, vaccinerights.com or did you say .com or .org?
.com. I know. I have that problem in my brain too. I keep thinking .org, and I have to remind myself to tell you .com.
Okay.
But
the
reason why I tell you this is because I know you have a lot of listeners, and I didn't know if I'd never heard you mention him before. When I have a good signal, I listen to you guys on the phone. But I never really heard you mention him or Robert Scott Bell, so I thought I'd ask you, to see if you're familiar with these people, because when I offer people an alternative, or a way to keep from getting toxic waste dumped into their system via an injection, I give them an alternative that will be better, right? And for example, are you familiar with Robert Scott Bell?
No. And what's his website? Is that
robertscottbell.com?
Okay. All right.
And he's a homeopath. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, robertscottbell.com. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. All right.
He's a homeopath, and he does business, so to speak. He has friends, but one is MD named Dr. Batar, who is a naturopath, homeopath, and several others like Dr. Frank King. There's a plethora of people there that give you an alternative so that, well, you know, yes, I tell people don't do the vaccine, get away from big pharma, get away from drugs that kill you. I give them an alternative so that they have a place to go that's actually better than big pharma and needles in your arms that are going to slowly kill you. In fact, Robert Scott Bell has been on Alex+Jones.
Okay. All right.
Anyway,
what we do is when people mention websites like this, we do have a file of websites that we do frequent for information, and we were just talking about this today as we were going through our things today, and saying, you know, we should have a resource page for our listeners, and of course these are two websites that we can add to the resource page that we're developing. So thank you very much for that. Right. Appreciate that.
No problem. Well, it's not. The reason why I asked you about this, because with Alan, I figured if you have a slot that you could fit in, he would be a really good guest to interview. I know that it's a little bit away from the norm, because usually you're I don't know how to say. But anyway, it kind of deals with some of your subject matter because he is somewhat political in the aspect of he's for people's rights to self-determine, okay? And he knows about the eugenics wackos that want to rule the world and, you know, all this stuff, okay? He's one of it. It's pretty cool, actually, but I just thought he would be really good for, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever of an interview, very informative to people as well, and why they may want to get an exemption for a vaccine. You know, it's one thing to hear it from an amateur homeopath like myself, and it's another thing to hear it from not doctor, but from a lawyer that deals with this on a day-to-day basis with, you know, a diverse section of the public, so to speak. But
well,
anyway.
Sir, very good. Yeah, I really appreciate the information, and you know, homeopaths have their place, and of course, as we enter into some pretty nasty times, we need to make sure we're running on 8 cylinders if we have them, or 6 if we're wired that way. So we need to take care of ourselves. So indeed.
6-cylinder.
Well, then we need to make sure all 6 are operating good. Well.
Yeah. Now, before the Rockefeller Foundation and all their garbage and with their brainwashing of the medical schools, the medicine of the day was homeopathy and naturopathy, and a lot more successful than so-called modern-day medicine. When if you look at Dr. Bashir and all that, he was way beyond Louis Pasteur. But that's another story altogether. But anyway, I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and I know you have other callers and stuff. But
well, thanks for your call, man.
Really good.
Yeah,
man.
We'll do this. All right.
And
appreciate
just remember, it's okay to be an extremist. Okay.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You
deny. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, bigot, racist, and everything else. I mean, my gosh, man, what's next? You're going to say you're a Christian and I have Bill of Rights and God-given unalienable rights? I live in a representative republic? Gosh, jeez, man, you must be one of those. Yeah. Anyway,
well,
I know.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, you bet,
take care.
Take care, y'all. God
All
bless.
Right.
All right. Bye.
A little funny story. I got to tell you this, Joe. My wife came into my office. When was this? Sunday. Yesterday. It was yesterday. She came into my office. I was gone for a period of time, and she came into my office to. She had to look for something on my computer, and she looked at my emails. And first of all, she said, "Wow, don't you ever answer your emails?" And I said, "Sure, I answer them, and then I put them in a specific folder." and what she saw were the 50-some thousand that, I haven't yet answered. And I fully intend to, by the way. Now, having said that, she said, what did you do to get some people really mad, angry at you, And she was looking at some of the emails, some of the more famous emails that I've gotten. In fact, somebody had, she was a little bit disturbed because somebody said, look, I know where you live, and it was veiled threats, but it was it made me laugh a little bit and think, oh my gosh, how little people really know. If people only knew the types of emails we get. It's just some really great ones, by the way.
Yeah,
absolutely great ones. But
99% of them are positive, or even if they are critical, they are loving and coming from a place of Christian brotherly love.
And the letters and the cards the letters and cards that we get from all over the country, all in different countries, are fantastic. And we're going to take a day too and really kind of just reference a lot of the mail that we get. But it was just so funny because I walked in and she had this really strange look on her face. She said, what did you do? So anyway. All right.
I don't let my wife or anybody else really read my emails. You're probably the only person I share them with. But we're going to go to 972 area code. 972, welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Go ahead, what's on your mind?
Hello. I have quite a few things on my mind regarding the immigration issue and what's happening at the border.
Okay.
And
Fire away.
Yes?
No, I'm sorry. My big mouth again. I just said fire away.
Oh, I thought you said by the way. Anyway, first you're talking about Grand Prairie, and that's about 35 minutes from me, so living in North Dallas. And I have friends, actually one is my son, who's a resident in Costa Rica, and they're arriving Thursday, and I've been having my church to pray for safe journey up here because everything at the DFW airport is so different now. It's computerized for they take photos, and it's very strange and eerie because there aren't even people anymore. You just kind of use your passport. That's for residents, citizens. But what I've been doing missionary work in Costa Rica for about 14 years, and so where we're going with this, I can see the pattern because when I first started going to Costa Rica, the cultural shock, the first thing I noticed, and I do inner city work and go to the jungle, so I'm not out in the upper class. I'm with the poor people. And what really fascinated me at first was kind of a contrast because when a society is poor, the first thing you'll start noticing, and I believe this immigration thing is going to flood our country, where they'll be so overwhelmed before long you'll see that garbage won't be picked up the same. Things will just start decaying in terms of cleanliness. And down there, when there's a mudslide in Ecuador or earthquake in Honduras or anything that goes on, they flood down because there are no borders. They'll come down to Costa Rica because Costa Rica is such a lovely, peaceful little country. It's a lovely place. And they don't even have an army. And yet they have absorbed, they're already a poor Central American country, and they've absorbed thousands of Nicaraguan and Honduras refugees flooding. And I've watched them absorb that, and many of them will just, many of the refugees will just hang out in the park. And it's a sad situation.
Where do those refugees originate? Where do they come from and why? Do you know the answer?
Yes, it comes because, first of all, economic. They look at Costa Rica, even in its poor country compared to us. They look at that as about the most peaceful, a better life, just a better life. And when you're desperate and you're living in desperate situations, the promise of a better life is the draw and desperation and survival. However, what happens is that since the communities cannot absorb the people, and they're very precious people. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love the Spanish people. I love them. They're very sweet, family-oriented people. But when the cities can't absorb them, then they go out they start building their own cities in the slums and find land and squat and anything and just find paper almost and cardboard to put hovels together. I've visited many of those homes because I work with the church, and they go work 7 days a week, sometimes to 1, 2 in the morning, visiting people, talking and sharing the Lord and having Bible studies. And these people love the Lord, but it's a very difficult situation. And a few years ago, at any time you want to stop me, you may. I know how patient you all are in listening to people talk, and I've always appreciated that. But, many years ago, I thought it would be nice to move to Costa Rica. And yet now it's still looking nice, but I'm seeing that that's what's going to be happening here. Our country will soon be a third world country, and that's just that issue. It's going to break down. We're already on the tipping point of poverty in this country, and 30,000 plus coming in. I don't think that anybody really realizes the deterioration that's going to happen and how quickly. But on the positive side, to sum this all up, on the positive side, I've also seen, working with the people there, working in the jungle with people that have so little, didn't even have electricity a few years ago. I have seen the glory of God being poured out on those that are hungry for God, and blessings and a joy that comes into their life when they live for God and put Him first, that it just somehow just transports you into another kingdom that's not of this world. And I believe that no matter what happens in this country, if we keep our eyes on the Lord, as Joe is always, reminding us, if we keep our eyes on the Lord, I just believe He's going to somehow protect us through whatever we go through, but we will be required to do what we can to help people and not just hide in holes. That's what I have to say.
Very well said. Very well said, and you're exactly right. Looking at this from the Christian perspective, the true Christian perspective, and I suppose that might not be the correct terminology, but you're right. Thank you for sharing all that information. It's an interesting perspective from someone who's been there in Central America, Costa Rica, and seen firsthand the poverty conditions. But God bless you, by the way. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. Take care. But I think people what the majority of progressives, what their narrative is, the people who are causing this crisis here in this country. I think anybody, you know what, Joe, any liberal, progressive, or New World Order type person with a microphone, or regardless of party or ideology, if you're a globalist, you're for the tearing down of this country. And I think too few people really understand the magnitude of the lie under which we live. Don't you? I mean, you know what I'm saying, Joe? I think too few people.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people live in a constant state of denial, not because they're ignorant or unable to comprehend or stupid. Okay, they're not. But because we've been force-fed this official story for so long.
And the lack of seeking for the truth themselves. Whether it's, it might be completely innocent and unintentional, but we're told, to search the scriptures. We're told where the truth is and where to find it and what to do with it when we do find it. And once we build ourselves on that foundation, it's very hard to get us off that foundation, and so few people find it. That's why it says, the way to the hell, the gates are wide, and the way to heaven is straight and very narrow if you find it. And that's where it starts.
Well, and I think the level of deception has reached epidemic levels, but it's also been so refined. This deception under which we live has been so refined, and we will have shows in the future talking about the programming that we're subjected to all of the time, both the origins and the methods, the message, all of this. It is so. The word of the night apparently is devious. It's extremely devious. And it goes back so far. And I went through, folks, because of the 4th of July, I was looking for some material, specific material, and I came across, remember 1976, of course, America's bicentennial. Remember the bicentennial minutes that showing,
Well, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, you don't? My goodness. But I remember during the Carter administration, the bicentennial minutes, Ford and then Carter ending it. The grip, the branding, the marketing, the Madison Avenue marketing of the bicentennial minutes. Now, why do I bring this up? Of course, because it's related to Independence Day, the 4th of July, and how notice how well Paul McGuire has talks about the fallacies behind the 4th of July, and that's really directed to a specific audience, that is ready to understand or understands the fallacies of Independence Day. But having said that, the slick marketing, the merging between news and propaganda, news and entertainment propaganda, to go back in history and to watch that evolve to what it is today, man, incredible. That's all.
There's a great video you showed me maybe a year back it was about a 2-hour video about news manipulation from the late 80s up until today's day and age. I forget the name of it, but it showed a lot of behind the scenes.
Exactly. And one of the best YouTube series, folks, if you've got like a week just to spend watching YouTubes, if I could watch nothing else on YouTube but one thing, if somebody said, look, you can only watch one series or one YouTube channel or series of videos, it's called Evidence of Revision. That's Evidence of Revision. That's what you're referring to, Joe. It's a multi-part walk through history. Whoever put this together did such a fantastic job. I mean, we're talking original news footage going back. I'm just trying to think of when it really. We'll say starting with the Kennedy assassination, because I believe that's where they really began, in going through the decade of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and so on. It's a fantastic montage of actual news clips, news footage. It's just amazing. Evidence of Revision. And I've got nothing to do with the creation or distribution or marketing or whatever. It's free anyway, so.
All right, we're going to move right along here to area code 704. 704, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Florida. Or if you're dyslexic, 407.
704, Florida area code.
Are you sure?
Or North Carolina.
There you go.
407 is Florida.
All right. If you're talking, we can't hear you.
We're going to put you back on hold. We're going to go to another call, 631. 631, you're up next. The floor is yours.
Hey, Doug and Joe, it's a pleasure to speak with you. I'm a first-time caller. I'm Nick from New York, and I was just
Long Island.
Yes.
All right.
Right in the middle of the island. was on the topic of Michelle. As you guys, there was other people that came forward as well. There was a woman that came forward and talked about how she knew Barry when he was younger, and how he used to go with men. I don't know if you ever saw that interview. She was actually on the Manning Report. Do you know the Manning Report? James Manning, he's a pastor out of New York as well.
I've been on there. Yeah, I've been a guest on his program, and we've talked off air a number of times. I think Greg Jackson is a regular on Dr. Manning's. In fact, I know Greg Jackson's a regular on Dr. Manning's program. So yes, yeah, and I know who you're referring to. I'm trying to remember her name now, and it escapes me. But yes, I've seen the video that was that she did she do it, or was she just in that video? I'm struggling to recall this.
No, she was interviewed by him, I believe.
Okay, all right.
About when she grew up in Hawaii, and she knew him back then. And there were so many people that came forward. So, I mean, when you look at the fact that, we don't know who he is, and we don't know where he really came from, with Joe Alpire down in Arizona and all his investigations, then can we believe anything? It's possible. I mean, there was also a YouTube video that was out on her the anatomy of men and women, and the hands and the shoulders and the head, and it just I don't know. I'm not saying I'm totally convinced, but I wouldn't also say that I'm believe that she's totally could be a man or a woman. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Okay, I'm looking at a number of different accounts, and I don't want to say documentaries, but assertions and analyses of various things from the Adam's apple to, as you point out, the different anatomical oddities, if you will, and also some anecdotal, even more anecdotal evidence, I should say, with respect to accounts early on in her life. And it's amazing how little we know, that even we have to have this discussion or ask these questions. I mean, there should be no doubt over anything. I mean, when you've got a person in power like that, whether it's Barry or Barack in power as the renegade in chief, or Michelle as Miss Renaissance, again referencing the Secret Service code name, we shouldn't have any questions, should we? We should know all about it.
This is a very strange world we're living in, and I became a born-again believer about 2 years ago, and, I was a prepper, and I was looking at all the things I had, and I said, well, at the time I wasn't born again, and I'm like, eventually this stuff's going to run out, and when it does run out, what do I have then? And then the fear of the Lord came over me, and I just haven't looked back, and it's been wonderful. It's been an unbelievable experience, just worshiping and following Jesus every day. The problem I have is most of my friends and family have not, no matter, they don't want to talk about it. I think Joe was saying a second ago that people just are in denial, or they just don't want to know about it. Even if I could have, they don't even want to have conversations. They just want to go ahead and watch the baseball, football game, and they don't even want to have conversations of it. So it is disheartening when your friends and family aren't realizing what the world is today. It's not, it's nothing from when I grew up. It's nothing.
You're right on that. I mean, are you in your 50s, 40s, 30s?
I'm 50.
Okay, all right. So you're closer to my age, of course, than Joe's. So yeah, it's things have just changed so much over our lifetime. I mean, my goodness. And most of the change, Nick, do you think that most of the change has occurred over the last, we'll say, I don't know, last decade or so, 10 years?
10 years, yeah, I think so. I think it was about 10 years. I started waking up. I always used to talk to my friends and say, why is this happening? Why is that happening? We never could figure it out. And then, finally I woke up and I saw the light, and now you thought, when you know what the world is really like, and what really is going on in the world, it's great because now you turn to the Lord, and He is your Savior, and I am not stressed out at all. I'm very calm about it. It's just most of my friends, I'll even go. I'm going a couple different directions here, but most of them, I was a heavy drinker before I found Jesus. Before I was Catholic, and I was a heavy drinker because you want to numb yourself. You want to numb yourself to the world, and most of my friends are still in that world. You try to pull them out, but they're in the matrix, and you just can't get them out. You just can't pull them out. You just pray for them and hope that they will get out of there sooner, hopefully sooner than later. But I believe that Barack was placed there. The Lord allowed Barack Obama to be in power because there's so many things that just point in how the heck can he be there, and that's the only thing the only conclusion could come to, only one I could come to anyway.
Interesting conclusion. I think Joe and I, we've talked about this, and Joe, you'd probably agree with that. That I agree with Nick about that, I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's. But I also think too that as we pray these, being born again, as we pray, and as we seek the truth, I think the scales do fall from our eyes, and we're instructed to remain sober and vigilant, and I think that. I went down that path too. I remember weeks and weeks and weeks where, you have a rough series of days as an investigator. You come home and you pound the booze,
Yeah, and there's actually an article today we didn't cover that they're trying to give away in Washington State free pot to homeless and the poor there. Only making their situation that much worse by doing so.
They want to give free pot to the homeless and poor, but they don't want to feed them.
Right.
It's crazy times. It really is. And I have one question for you that I'm a little confused about, and then I'll let you guys go because I'll maybe get another caller in. And I totally believe that it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. It's the same thing because it's run by the globalists. But it just seems that is it just that the Republicans, like let's say this gun control thing, why hasn't the Republicans just given in? If the globalists are really running the show, which I do believe. Sometimes you look at both sides and you say, I guess it's more complicated than that. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I get that, and I've asked the same question, and the response. In fact, this was one of the exact conversations that I had with W. Of course, why hasn't the Republican hierarchy why haven't they just said, okay, we'll compromise and we'll end up acquiescing to a larger gun control or a gun grab? Because, well, number one, they have and they are was the response. What makes you think that they're not doing so right now? They are, and this was told to me, but it's not as overt as it's kind of covert in the background. It's a process. It isn't just one bang, no pun intended, or one stroke of the pen where this is going to take place, because they want to do it at a certain time. For example, the Republicans might sign on to this gun ban, we'll say, national gun ban or gun registration gun ban after the dollar has been taken down and there are riots on the streets, and the Republicans will say, okay, yep, we agree with you. Okay, there's too many killings. We need to ban guns. So we do believe, or at least I do believe, it's going to coincide with another event.
So another major event will do it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and it's probably going to be economic in nature. That's my belief. That's not based on any type of intelligence that I have. It's my belief based on conversations with people that are a heck of a lot smarter than I am.
Makes a lot of sense. Did either one of you hear the Sandy Hook 911 calls?
Yes.
The Sandy,
Joe,
you did?
Yeah, I listened through those painstakingly back then. I think all of them.
Yeah, and you know, I just recently came across them, so maybe I'm a little behind the game on this one. But I mean, they're so fake. I mean, according to me, I mean, the way I heard them, they were just sounded so fake.
They had reports of nuns in a van with guns, and I mean, there was just a lot of anomalies and things that didn't seem to fit.
Yeah, they talk about gunshots, and you didn't hear anything. You know, he's shooting, and there was silence in the background. So, well, Doug and Joe, listen, it was a pleasure to speak with both of you. I'm a frequent caller. I haven't spoken to Pastor Begley in a while, but I plan on calling in this week. And I came to him when the birds fell out of the sky in Beebe, Arkansas. That's when I found Pastor Begley, and he's he's a great man. And I got baptized at his church, and it's just been a wonderful ride when I found him.
That's awesome.
He's a great man. But thank you guys so much, and we'll be listening and speaking to you guys soon. Take care.
All right. God bless you. And boy, if you can bring me a pizza from Brooklyn as you're coming by, I'd love
Queens,
that.
Joey's Pizza.
Oh yeah, Joey's Pizza in Queens. I love their pizza. All right. Thanks, brother.
Right.
Take care.
Have a great night. All right, we're going to go to area code 303 next. I believe this is Colorado. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yeah, hi, Doug and Joe. How you doing?
Very well.
I was listening to everything that you've been talking about, and you know, the craziness, and I don't know. My comments are that I think a lot of times we get freaked out because everybody is saying, you know, everybody's going to die and all this, and I think I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that, you know, when we receive Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, He breathed the breath of life in us, and we're going to live forever. Period.
Right. Mm-hmm. And by the way, every body is going to die. I mean, that's a given. It, you know, it could be tonight, could be 100. You know,
right. And the soul that He breathed air into and life into that will live forever will live forever in one of two places in eternity.
Yeah, and so, you know, that's been real comforting to me. And then, you know, God keeps giving me these revelations about, you know, like Psalm 91, where, you know, 1,000 will fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand. And, you know, I've had friends that have had food materialize. You know, I've had all kinds of other things where I've seen God stop rain, you know, in the midst of, you know, thunderstorms and all that. So I think the big thing is for us to allow God to run us through His serious training program and get us ready, you know.
Look, I agree with that. I think that we have to listen, pray, and listen to, you know, to the messages. And to me, the harder or the more earnest, I shouldn't say harder, but the more earnest that we pray and seek for guidance, I believe we become more informed and in tune with God. Just me.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that for me, I really enjoy listening to your show because like some of the people, like with what's his name last week? You know, what he was talking about was confirming things. And then when we talk about the news, it's like, yep, okay, here we are. We're moving a little bit closer. You know, this is how this is fitting in with the Word of God. And, you know, it's just confirming and keeping me awake. So, you know, but I'm at the point where, you know, I don't get upset, you know, and
nor should you.
There's no reason to get upset.
No, not at all. And in fact, once you know that we are already fighting from a position of victory, we know that we're going to win. That is to say, the people who are saved, washed in the blood of our Lord, then we know that we're fighting from a position of victory. That doesn't mean that we just lay down, roll over, and play dead. No, we've got to be responsible, take up our positions. But there's no fear. I mean, we shouldn't be paralyzed by fear. Not at all. Yeah, I agree.
So, my biggest thing is just exhaustion from praying for all these things that are supposed to be prayed for. It's sort of like, Lord, what do you want me to be praying for? And all of a sudden he just starts flowing. And before you know it, it's sort of like, okay, Lord, well, give me a break now for a while, So,
exactly.
At any rate, so that was my comment. So.
All right, sir. Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for the call. And it's a good thing to be exhausted through prayer as opposed to being exhausted through, by watching a doubleheader or something like that. So something very. God bless you. You take care of yourself. Thanks for listening and thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
God bless you.
Yep.
All right, we have time for one more caller. We're going to go to 603. This will be the last caller of the evening, so take us out, caller.
Not
Doug
literally.
and Joe, I hope you're well.
We are.
Good. The other night on the 4th of July when your show was nixed, I sent you an email, and every time I tried to call in to the show, the lady would say, her spiel, and if you'd like to, get in the queue to call, press 1, and then she said, just wait, and the show will begin in a moment, and the clock would count up to 33, and the phone would cut off. So I do it again, and it would go up to 33, and the phone would cut off. And you said that it cut off on your side at 666 seconds. So I just wanted to explain my side of it, what was happening.
Interesting numbers, huh?
Interesting. Well, it just shows you how sleazy, the people who use those numbers really are. When Steve Quayle and Tom Horn were on, Tom had mentioned, I had to listen to that 2 or 3 times because it was so good. Tom had mentioned that wouldn't it be great to do a 10-hour, like a 3-day Hagmann and Hagmann to prepare people. I happen to be praying for that, and I was looking for Tom's email address on his website to actually send him and ask him to pray along. I think it would be so important to pick these wise watchmen's minds on how we possibly can prepare.
What I'll do is I will send him a private email, and I know that he's hard to get a hold of even by email. But I'll send him an email because I got a lot of response about that. His remark.
I think Peter hung out with Jesus, and Jesus washed Peter's feet, and they ate together, and they talked together, and they prayed together. But yet Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And I say, Lord, when it comes to me, when it comes time for me to lay down my life for you, will I be able to do it? And I've never seen you. You know what did I make that clear?
Yeah, you did. And that's a very good point.
And it's like, Lord, prepare me now. Prepare me for everything I need to know of you and faith and strength, and just so I don't deny you. I mean, Peter was right there with him, but denied him. What will I do? Anyways, God bless you.
Thank you so much for that call.
Thanks for sharing that.
Wow, that's a very good point.
Heavy,
heavy. It is someone who walked with Jesus and
knew him as the Christ.
Yeah, and yet denied him. And wow.
And through that brought Peter, to the more mature spiritual condition that led him to be a foundation of the Christian church for the Lord after he was resurrected.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, men. God bless you.
God bless. All right. Thanks for being a caller and a listener, and we'll get that email up to Tom Horn and see what happens.
You have a great night.
Thank you so much.
All right. Folks, that'll do it for the Hagmann and Hagmann Report tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening, and please say a prayer for those responding on the Patriot side to the southern border. Please say a prayer for just pray and prepare. You know, one of the callers did say, Nick, I think from Long Island, did say, boy, you know, at some point, I don't think you can prepare enough for what's coming practically. You know,
well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a point where the preparations will mean nothing because what we'll be facing will be completely spiritual and have nothing to do with preparations of this world.
Right, exactly. So that's all good points, all good calls. And I just want to say thanks for listening and thanks for being part of our family. And mean that you're the best. Echoing the sentiments of the tech and customer service support of Blog Talk Radio, you are the best audience out there. You really are.
Tomorrow night, Steve Quayle will be joining us with a special guest from Czechoslovakia for the first hour, and he'll be with us the rest of the show. Wednesday, Eric Phelps will be joining us, author of Vatican Assassins. Thursday, Nathan Liao. Friday, possibly a surprise, whether it's a guest or just us alone. Until then, God bless. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe. Have a great evening.